The ship fell like a burning star through the orange sky of Cathara. Dr. Lisa Morgan gripped her seat as the vessel shook and twisted through the alien atmosphere. Red warning lights flashed across every surface while alarms screamed their warnings. She had been collecting rock samples from the asteroid belt when the engine core failed without warning. Now her small research craft was diving toward the planet below with no way to stop it. Lisa felt her stomach drop as the ship broke through a layer of strange purple clouds. Below her stretched endless canyons carved deep into red stone. The landscape looked harsh and empty with no signs of water or plant life. Sharp peaks rose like broken teeth from the canyon floors, while shadows moved across the rocky surface. She had studied many worlds during her years as a xenoarchaeologist, but none looked quite as hostile as this one. The crash came faster than she expected. Her ship struck the canyon rim and bounced twice before sliding down a steep slope in a shower of sparks and twisted metal. Lisa's safety harness dug into her chest as the vessel rolled end over end. She closed her eyes and waited for the final impact that would either kill her or leave her stranded on this unknown world. When silence finally came, she opened her eyes slowly. The ship had come to rest against a large boulder at the bottom of a narrow canyon. Steam rose from the cracked hull while small fires burned in 3 different places. Lisa checked herself for injuries and found only bruises and small cuts. She had been lucky beyond belief. Her first priority was getting out before the ship exploded. Lisa grabbed her emergency pack and scanner, then climbed through the twisted airlock. The moment she stepped outside, she felt the thin air burn her lungs. The atmosphere was breathable, but barely so. She would need to be careful not to overexert herself until her body adjusted to the lower oxygen levels. The canyon walls rose 300 feet on both sides, creating a corridor of shadow and stone. Strange formations jutted from the walls like frozen waterfalls, while crystals glittered in hidden crevices. Lisa had never seen geology quite like this before. The rock showed signs of volcanic activity, but also water erosion from some distant past when this world might have been more hospitable. She spent the next 2 hours checking the ship's damage. The engine core was completely destroyed and would never work again. The communication array had been smashed during the crash, leaving her with no way to call for help. Her food supplies would last maybe a week if she was careful. Water was an even bigger problem since her recycling system had been damaged beyond repair. Lisa climbed to higher ground and used her scanner to map the surrounding area. The device showed vast canyon systems stretching in every direction like a maze carved by ancient floods. Far to the north, she detected what might be metal structures, but they were too distant to reach on foot. More concerning were the energy readings coming from various points around the canyon. Something down here was giving off power signatures unlike anything in her database. As the alien sun began to set, she made camp near her ship. The temperature dropped quickly once darkness fell, and she was grateful for her thermal suit. Strange sounds echoed through the canyon during the night. Sometimes she heard what sounded like wind through distant caves. Other times she caught noises that might have been made by living creatures, though she saw no signs of animal life during her exploration. The next morning brought new challenges. Lisa's scanner detected a series of underground chambers beneath the canyon floor. When she investigated, she found passages leading deep into the rock. The walls were covered with symbols that looked artificial rather than natural. Someone or something had carved these tunnels, though they appeared to be thousands of years old. The discovery excited her despite her desperate situation. This was exactly the kind of find that had drawn her to xenoarchaeology in the first place. Evidence of intelligent life on a world that seemed completely dead was the sort of mystery she lived to solve. She documented everything carefully with her scanner while exploring deeper into the tunnel system. On the second day after the crash, she heard something that changed everything. While examining a chamber filled with strange crystal formations, she caught the sound of someone crying out in distress. The voice came from somewhere above her in the canyon. Lisa climbed quickly toward the surface, following the desperate calls for help. She emerged from the tunnel entrance to find the source of the noise. Across the canyon floor, about 200 meters away, a figure was struggling in what looked like quicksand. The being appeared humanoid, but clearly was not human. Its skin had a golden tint, and its limbs were longer than a normal person's would be. Most striking were the clothing and ornaments, which looked like nothing from Earth. Leather garments were decorated with metal pieces that caught the sunlight, while feathers and beads hung from various straps and belts. The creature was sinking steadily. into the strange sand which seemed to glow with a faint blue light. Lisa realized she was watching someone die unless she acted quickly. Without thinking about the risk, she grabbed her emergency rope and anchor system, then ran toward the trapped being. The sand felt wrong under her feet as she approached. It was too warm and seemed to move in ways that normal sand should not. Her scanner detected high levels of electromagnetic activity coming from below the surface. This was not ordinary quicksand, but something far more dangerous. The substance appeared to be some kind of natural trap that had evolved or been created to capture unwary travelers. Lisa deployed her anchor system on solid rock, then threw the rope toward the struggling figure. The being looked up at her with large eyes that showed both fear and hope. It grabbed the rope with hands that had too many fingers but otherwise looked similar to human hands. Lisa began pulling while the creature tried to swim toward her through the glowing sand. The rescue took every bit of strength she had. The sand seemed to fight against her efforts to extract its victim. Twice the rope almost slipped from her hands as the substance below pulled with unnatural force. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, she managed to drag the being onto solid ground. Both of them lay gasping on the canyon floor. Lisa's new companion was covered in the strange blue sand which continued to glow for several minutes before fading to normal brown. The being sat up slowly and looked at her with obvious gratitude. It spoke in a language she did not recognize, but the tone was clearly one of thanks. Lisa got her first good look at her alien companion. The creature was definitely intelligent and probably young based on its size and features. Its clothing suggested a culture that valued decoration and ceremony. Most interesting were the weapons it carried, which appeared to be both primitive and advanced at the same time. Knife blades looked hand-forged, but the hilts contained technology she could not identify. The being tried to communicate using gestures and simple sounds. It pointed to itself and made what sounded like a name. Lisa thought it might be saying something like Swift Arrow, though she could not be sure. When she pointed to herself and said her name, the alien repeated it several times as if committing it to memory. As the afternoon wore on, the two of them managed basic communication through pointing and drawing pictures in the sand. Lisa learned that her companion was not alone, but part of a larger group that lived somewhere in the canyon systems. The alien seemed surprised by her appearance and technology, but showed no fear, only curiosity. Before the sun set, Swift Arrow prepared to leave. The being gave Lisa a small pendant made from the same crystal material she had seen in the underground chambers. Then it pointed toward distant mesas and made gestures that seemed to indicate it would return, with movements that seemed impossible for someone who had nearly died that morning. Swift Arrow disappeared into the maze of stone, leaving Lisa alone once again, with her damaged ship and uncertain future. Lisa held the crystal pendant up to the morning light and watched it catch the alien sun's rays. The small ornament was unlike anything she had seen before. The surface appeared smooth, but when she looked closer, she could see tiny symbols carved into the crystal itself. The markings seemed to shift and change as the light hit them from different angles. Her scanner detected energy signatures coming from within the stone, but could not identify what kind of power source it contained. The memory of yesterday's rescue played through her mind as she worked on her ship's communication system. Swift Arrow had been so close to death when she found him trapped in that strange quicksand. The substance had glowed with an unnatural blue light and seemed to pull at its victim with more force than normal sand should possess. Her scanner readings suggested the material contained elements not found in any human database. She wondered about the being she had saved. Swift Arrow appeared young but moved with the confidence of someone used to difficult terrain. The weapons and ornaments suggested a culture that valued both craftsmanship and warfare. Most intriguing were the symbols on the creature's clothing, which matched some of the markings she had found in the underground chambers. This implied the aliens' people had some connection to whoever had built those ancient tunnels. Lisa's attempts to repair her communication array were not going well. The crash had damaged most of the sensitive components beyond her ability to fix them. She could replace some parts using materials from other ship systems, but the main transmitter coil was completely destroyed. Without it, she had no way to send a distress signal to the nearest human colony, which was probably months away, even at faster than light speeds. Her food situation was becoming critical. The emergency rations would last another 5 days if she was careful. Water was an even bigger problem since her recycling system could only process a limited amount. before breaking down completely. She had found no signs of surface water anywhere in the canyon system, and her scanner showed the nearest underground aquifer was too deep to reach with her equipment. On the third morning after the crash, Lisa noticed she was being watched. Small movements caught her eye along the canyon rims. When she looked directly at the spots, the motion stopped, but she could feel eyes observing her from hidden positions. Her scanner detected heat signatures that appeared and disappeared too quickly to get accurate readings. Whatever was watching her knew how to avoid detection by human technology. The realization that Swift Arrow's people were studying her sent mixed feelings through Lisa's mind. On one hand, it suggested they were intelligent and cautious, which were good signs for potential communication. On the other hand, she had no way of knowing their intentions. The fact that they remained hidden rather than approaching openly could mean they viewed her as a threat or were planning some kind of action against her. She decided to continue working on her ship while acting as if she had not noticed the watchers. Lisa made sure to move slowly and avoid any gestures that might be interpreted as aggressive. When she needed to use tools, she held them where the observers could see what she was doing. If Swift Arrow's people were deciding whether she was dangerous, this might convince them she was only trying to survive. Her exploration of the underground chambers continued. During the afternoon hours when the canyon was too hot for surface work, the tunnel system was far more extensive than she had first realized. Passages led in every direction while chambers opened into vast underground spaces. Some rooms contained what appeared to be ancient machinery, though nothing she recognized. Other areas held carvings and artwork that showed scenes of daily life from some vanished civilization. The most interesting discovery was a chamber filled with the same crystal material that made up Swift Arrow's pendant. The walls were lined with formations that pulsed with faint light, while energy readings spiked whenever she approached them. Her scanner suggested these crystals were some kind of natural battery that could store and release power, though she could not determine how they worked or what charged them. During her fourth day alone, Lisa found evidence that her watchers were getting bolder. Footprints appeared near her ship during the night, showing that someone had approached close enough to examine her landing site. The tracks were definitely not human, but showed the same elongated proportions she had observed in Swift Arrow. Multiple sets of prints suggested at least 3 different individuals had visited her camp. More interesting were the small objects left behind near her ship. Someone had placed offerings of food and water where she would find them. The food appeared to be some kind of dried meat, while the water came in containers made from the same crystal material she kept finding. When she tested both using her scanner, they proved safe for human consumption. This suggested Swift Arrow had told his people about her biological needs. The gifts gave Lisa hope that contact might be possible. She decided to leave her own offering in return. From her emergency supplies, she selected items that might interest an alien culture: a small mirror that could reflect sunlight, a chemical light stick that would glow in the dark, a sample of human food that might give them information about her biology. She placed these items where the aliens had left their gifts, then waited to see what would happen. That evening, as the sun set behind the canyon walls, Lisa heard sounds coming from multiple directions. Calls and responses echoed off the stone walls in what sounded like some kind of communication system. The voices were definitely the same species as Swift Arrow, but she counted at least a dozen different individuals. Whatever message was being passed through the canyon, it involved many members of the alien community. The sounds continued for over an hour, growing louder and more complex as time passed. Lisa began to recognize patterns in the calls that suggested a sophisticated language rather than simple animal communication. Some sequences repeated multiple times, while others seemed to be responses to previous calls. The aliens were definitely discussing something important, and she suspected that something was her. When morning came, Lisa found that her gifts had been taken and replaced with new items. The aliens had left more food and water, along with something that made her heart race with excitement. It was a piece of metal that had been worked into a simple tool. The craftsmanship was excellent, showing skills that required both intelligence and practice. More importantly, the metal itself appeared to be an alloy that should not exist according to human science. Her scanner detected elements in the tool that were not on any periodic table. The atomic structure suggested materials that could only be created under conditions that did not occur naturally. This meant Swift Arrow's people possessed technology far more advanced than their primitive appearance suggested. They had somehow learned to manipulate matter at the atomic level, while maintaining what looked like a Stone Age culture. Lisa spent most of the day studying the alien tool and trying to understand its implications. If these beings could create new elements, they must have scientific knowledge that surpassed human achievements in some areas. Yet everything else about them suggested a nomadic culture that relied on hunting and gathering for survival. The combination of advanced material science with primitive lifestyle was unlike anything in the human database of known species. Her analysis was interrupted by a sound she had been hoping to hear. Swift Arrow's voice calling her name from somewhere nearby. Lisa climbed out of the underground chamber where she had been working and saw the alien standing on a ledge about 50 meters away. The being appeared healthy and strong, showing no signs of its recent near-death experience in the quicksand. Swift Arrow climbed down to meet her, bringing gifts of his own. Fresh meat that was still warm from cooking, fruits that looked unlike anything from Earth but smelled wonderful. Most importantly, a container of clear liquid that her scanner identified as pure water. The alien had remembered her biological needs and made sure to bring supplies that would help her survive. The two of them sat together on the canyon floor, while Lisa tried to communicate her gratitude. Swift Arrow seemed to understand her gestures and expressions even without shared language. The alien pointed to her ship, then made questioning sounds as if asking about the damage. When Lisa showed him the broken components, Swift Arrow examined them with obvious interest. What happened next surprised Lisa completely. Swift Arrow produced a small device from his clothing that looked like a combination of crystal and metal. When he held it near her damaged equipment, the device began to glow while making soft musical sounds. Her scanner detected energy fields that seemed to interact with the ship's systems in ways she did not understand. The alien worked for several minutes, moving the device over different parts of her communication array. Lisa watched in amazement as some of the damaged circuits began to show signs of activity. Swift Arrow was somehow using his technology to repair her human equipment, though she could not figure out how the process worked. When Swift Arrow finished his work, he gestured for Lisa to test her systems. She activated the communication array and felt her heart jump when status lights began glowing. The main transmitter was still damaged beyond repair, but several secondary systems were now functioning. She would not be able to send messages across in. Lisa woke on the 5th day after her crash to find 3 more crystal containers filled with water placed near her ship. Her alien watchers were becoming bolder in their assistance, though she still had not seen anyone except Swift Arrow. The containers were beautifully crafted with symbols carved into their surfaces that seemed to tell a story. Her scanner detected that the crystals themselves were somehow purifying the water, removing harmful minerals and bacteria that could make her sick. The alien clothing Swift Arrow had given her proved to be remarkable in ways she was still discovering. The material regulated her body temperature, keeping her cool during the blazing canyon days and warm during the freezing nights. More impressive was how the fabric seemed to repair small tears and stains on its own. When she examined it under magnification, she could see tiny fibers moving and reconnecting damaged areas. This was nanotechnology that surpassed anything humans had developed. Her exploration of the underground chamber system continued to reveal amazing discoveries. Lisa found rooms filled with what appeared to be historical records carved into crystal tablets. The symbols matched those on Swift Arrow's clothing and pendant, suggesting his people were connected to whoever had built these ancient tunnels. Some carvings showed scenes of great battles fought in the canyons, while others depicted ceremonies involving the glowing crystals she kept finding. Most disturbing were the images that seemed to show visitors from the sky. The carvings depicted ships falling from above while strange beings emerged to threaten the canyon dwellers. Lisa realized these might be records of previous alien invasions that Swift Arrow's people had survived. If so, her own arrival from space might have triggered ancient fears about skyborne enemies. Returning to their world, the partially repaired communication system Swift Arrow had helped fix was picking up strange signals from orbit. Lisa could not decode the transmissions, but the frequency patterns suggested artificial origin rather than natural stellar radiation. Something was broadcasting in this solar system, though she could not determine if the source was human technology or something else entirely. The signals came in regular bursts every few hours, as if following a predetermined schedule. Her scanner detected increasing activity in the canyon walls around her landing site. The electromagnetic signatures she had been tracking were growing stronger, while new energy sources appeared in areas that had previously shown no activity. Whatever technology Swift Arrow's people used to power their civilization was awakening from dormancy. The crystal formations throughout the underground chambers were beginning to pulse with brighter light as if charging up for some major event. Lisa spent hours trying to understand the alien tool Swift Arrow had left as a gift. Her analysis revealed that the metal contained isotopes that should have decayed millions of years ago, but somehow remained stable. The atomic structure suggested the material had been created in the core of a dying star, then somehow transported to this world and refined into useful alloys. This level of material science was beyond human capabilities and implied technologies that could manipulate fundamental forces. The food and water her watchers continued to provide was keeping her alive, but she needed to understand more about their intentions. Lisa began leaving her own gifts in return, hoping to establish better communication. She drew pictures showing her damaged ship and herself stranded on their world. She included images of other humans to show she was not alone in the universe. Most importantly, she drew scenes showing peaceful cooperation between different species, hoping to convey that she meant no harm. Her efforts at communication seemed to be working. The next morning she found responses to her drawings left where her watchers could find them. The alien artwork was far more sophisticated than her simple pictures showing detailed scenes of canyon life and culture. Lisa could see images of Swift Arrow's people hunting the strange creatures that lived in the deeper parts of the tunnel system. Other drawings showed ceremonies where the glowing crystals were used to power magnificent machines. The most significant drawing showed what appeared to be a gathering of many individuals around a central figure wearing elaborate ceremonial dress. Lisa recognized Swift Arrow among the crowd, while the central figure was clearly someone of great importance based on the ornate clothing and symbols of authority. She began to suspect that Swift Arrow was more than just a random member of his tribe. The pendant he had given her and the quality of his equipment suggested he might be someone special in their society. On the seventh day, the canyon walls began to vibrate, with low-frequency sounds that Lisa could feel in her bones. Her scanner detected massive amounts of energy, moving through the crystal formations deep underground. Whatever was happening involved the entire geological structure of the region. The ancient machinery in the tunnel chambers was activating after thousands of years of dormancy. Lights that had been dim were now blazing with power, while new passages opened in areas that had seemed like solid rock. Lisa realized she was witnessing the awakening of a planetary defense system. The energy signatures matched weapon patterns she had studied during her training, though these were far more powerful than anything humans had built. Swift Arrow's people were not just primitive nomads living in canyons. They were the guardians of a world-spanning network of advanced technology that had been hidden beneath the surface for ages. The orbital signals her communication system was detecting were becoming more frequent and powerful. Lisa managed to decode small fragments that confirmed her worst fears. The transmissions were in a language she did not recognize, but the mathematical pattern suggested military communications. Someone was planning an invasion of this world, and Swift Arrow's people knew it was coming. That explained why they were activating their ancient defenses and why Swift Arrow had indicated something important would happen in 3 days. Her scanner began detecting movement on a massive scale throughout the canyon systems. Hundreds of heat signatures were traveling through the underground passages while surface activity increased dramatically. Swift Arrow's people were mobilizing for war using tunnel networks that connected every part of their territory. Lisa found herself in the middle of preparations for a battle that would determine the fate of an entire world. The realization that she might be caught in an alien invasion made Lisa reconsider her situation. If hostile forces were planning to attack this world, her human technology might be seen as either a threat or a valuable asset. Swift Arrow's people had shown her kindness so far, but desperation could change their attitudes quickly. She needed to make her intentions clear before circumstances forced her into taking sides in a conflict she did not understand. Lisa decided to venture deeper into the underground chambers, hoping to find more information about what was happening. The tunnel system was vast beyond anything she had imagined, with passages leading for kilometers in every direction. Along the way, she found chambers filled with equipment that was clearly designed for warfare. weapons that combined crystal technology with metallurgy that surpassed human engineering, armor that would protect its wearer from energy weapons while enhancing their physical capabilities. The most impressive discovery was a command center that seemed to monitor the entire planet. Crystal screens showed images from locations all across the world, while energy readings tracked everything from weather patterns to spacecraft movements in orbit. Lisa realized Swift Arrow's people had been watching her ship long before it crashed. They knew about her arrival, and had probably been debating what to do about her presence when Swift Arrow's rescue changed everything. The command center also revealed the source of the orbital signals. A fleet of warships was approaching the system using technology that Lisa's scanner could barely detect. The vessels were massive with weapon systems that could devastate planetary surfaces. Worse yet, the fleet would arrive in exactly 3 days. Swift Arrow had not been telling her when his people would return. He had been warning her when the invasion would begin. Lisa found herself faced with choices that would affect not just her own survival, but the fate of an entire civilization. She could try to remain neutral and hope both sides would leave her alone. She could attempt to leave the planet, though her ship was barely capable of atmospheric flight, let alone interstellar travel. Or she could offer her assistance to Swift Arrow's people, who had shown her nothing but kindness since her arrival. The decision became easier when she discovered what the invading fleet intended to do. Hidden among the alien transmissions were references to strip mining operations and slave labor requirements. The attackers were not coming to establish peaceful contact. They planned to rob this world of its resources while enslaving or destroying anyone who resisted them. Swift Arrow's people were facing extinction unless they could somehow defeat an enemy with superior numbers and technology. Lisa spent the rest of the day studying the defensive system Swift Arrow's people had built. The technology was incredibly advanced, but designed for a different type of warfare than what the approaching fleet would bring. The crystal-powered weapons were devastating against ground targets, but might not be effective against spacecraft. The underground tunnels provided excellent protection, but would become death. Lisa woke on the 8th day to a sound unlike anything she had heard before. The canyon walls echoed with rhythmic drumming that seemed to come from every direction at once. Her scanner showed massive heat signatures moving through the tunnel systems, while the crystal formations blazed with energy that made her equipment struggle to function properly. Something momentous was happening, and she was about to discover what Swift Arrow had meant when he held up 3 fingers. She climbed to the highest point near her ship and looked out across the canyon system. What she saw took her breath away. Hundreds of riders were emerging from hidden passages in the rock walls, mounted on creatures that moved like flowing water across the stone surfaces. The mounts appeared to be some kind of evolved lizard that had adapted perfectly to the canyon environment. Their riders wore armor that gleamed with embedded crystals, while weapons of impossible design hung from their saddles. At the center of this incredible procession rode a figure who could only be Swift Arrow's father. The being wore a magnificent headdress made from crystal formations that caught the morning light and threw rainbows across the canyon walls. His armor was more elaborate than any other rider, with symbols that seemed to move and change as Lisa watched. Most impressive was the mount he rode, which was larger than the others and seemed to glow with its own inner light. Swift Arrow appeared at the edge of the gathering and pointed toward Lisa's position. The entire procession turned to look at her while conversations erupted among the riders. Lisa could hear voices raised in what sounded like debate, though she could not understand the words being spoken. Some riders seemed agitated while others appeared curious about her presence. The leader held up his hand and silence fell instantly across the assembled warriors. Lisa realized she was witnessing something that no human had ever seen before. This was not just a war party preparing for battle. These were the guardians of an ancient civilization that had survived in secret for thousands of years. The riders carried weapons that combined primitive craftsmanship with technology that surpassed human engineering. Their mounts were not just animals, but partners in a symbiotic relationship that enhanced both species. The leader began riding toward her position, followed by Swift Arrow and a small group of other warriors. As they approached, Lisa could see details that made her heart race with excitement and fear. The crystal technology embedded in their equipment was more sophisticated than anything in her scanner database. The metals used in their weapons showed atomic structures that should not exist. Most disturbing were the energy readings coming from the leader himself, suggesting enhancements that went beyond normal biology. Swift Arrow called out to her using the few human words he had learned. Lisa climbed down from her observation point and walked toward the approaching riders, trying to appear confident, despite her nervousness. She had dealt with many alien cultures during her career, but none quite like this. These beings possessed both advanced technology and warrior traditions that made them formidable beyond measure. The leader dismounted and approached her on foot while the other riders remained in their saddles. Lisa could see intelligence in his eyes, along with a wariness that suggested he had dealt with skyborne visitors before. Swift Arrow spoke rapidly in their language while gesturing toward Lisa, and then toward her crashed ship. The leader listened carefully before responding with questions that Swift Arrow translated using gestures and simple drawings in the sand. Lisa realized she was being evaluated not just as an individual but as a representative of her entire species. Every word and action would influence how Swift Arrow's people viewed humanity for generations to come. She tried to project calm confidence while demonstrating respect for their customs and authority. When the leader gestured toward her ship, she nodded and led the group toward her landing site. The warriors examined her crashed vessel with obvious interest, studying the human technology with careful attention. They pointed out details to each other while making observations that Lisa wished she could understand. Swift Arrow's father ran his hands along the hull while the crystals in his equipment began to glow more brightly. Lisa realized he was using some kind of scanning technology to analyze her ship's construction and capabilities. After completing his examination, the leader turned back to Lisa and spoke in a voice that carried natural authority. Swift Arrow translated by drawing pictures that showed the approaching invasion fleet. The leader pointed to the sky, then held up 3 fingers just as Swift Arrow had done days earlier. Then he drew images of great battles fought among the stars, while warriors rode their crystal-powered mounts through space itself. Lisa understood that she was being offered a choice. She could remain neutral in the coming conflict and hope both sides would leave her alone. Or she could join with Swift Arrow's people and help them defend their world against the approaching invasion. The leader made it clear that her decision would affect not just her own fate, but potentially the outcome of the battle itself. She thought about everything she had learned during her time in the canyon. Swift Arrow's people had shown her nothing but kindness despite having every reason to fear skyborne visitors. They possessed technology that could benefit both species if properly shared. Most importantly, they were facing extinction at the hands of an enemy that viewed them as nothing more than obstacles to be removed. Lisa made her decision by walking to her ship and retrieving her scanner and emergency equipment. She returned to the leader and began showing him the technical capabilities of human technology. Her scanner could detect energy signatures that might help locate the enemy fleet. Her medical knowledge could help treat wounded warriors. Most importantly, her understanding of how different technologies could be combined might provide new tactical options for the coming battle. The leader studied her equipment with obvious fascination, especially when she demonstrated how her scanner could analyze the crystal formations in his armor. Swift Arrow translated as she explained how human and alien technologies might work together to create something more powerful than either system alone. The concept seemed to intrigue the leader, who began asking questions that Swift Arrow struggled to convey through gestures. The breakthrough came when Lisa activated her portable hologram projector and showed 3-dimensional images of her scanner's analysis. The leader immediately understood the implications and began using his own crystal technology to interface with her equipment. The two systems connected in ways that neither Lisa nor the leader had expected, creating new capabilities that surprised them both. Within minutes, they had established a basic communication protocol using mathematics and scientific principles that transcended language barriers. The leader, whose name translated roughly to running bear, possessed scientific knowledge that rivaled any human expert, despite his primitive appearance. Their discussion of physics and engineering concepts continued for hours, while the assembled warriors waited patiently for their chief to finish his evaluation. Running Bear revealed information that changed Lisa's understanding of the situation completely. The approaching invasion fleet belonged to a species called the hegemony that had been conquering worlds throughout this region of space for centuries. They possessed overwhelming military superiority and had never been successfully resisted by any planetary civilization. Swift Arrow's people were the last free inhabitants of dozens of worlds that had fallen to hegemony expansion. The crystal technology that powered their civilization was the key to their survival strategy. The network of underground installations could channel planetary energy into weapons capable of destroying spacecraft. However, the system had not been fully activated for thousands of years, and many components needed repair or replacement. Worse yet, the hegemony had learned to detect crystal energy signatures and would target the installations as soon as they became active. Lisa realized why her arrival had been so significant. Human technology used different physical principles than either crystal science or hegemony systems. If properly integrated, it might mask the energy signatures of the planetary defense network until the moment of activation. More importantly, human tactical doctrine emphasized mobility and flexibility, rather than the fixed fortifications the hegemony expected to encounter. Running Bear proposed an alliance that would combine human ingenuity with Catharan crystal science to create a defense strategy unlike anything the hegemony had faced before. Lisa would serve as technical advisor, helping to integrate the two technologies, while learning how to operate crystal-powered equipment. In return, her people would be offered full partnership in whatever civilization emerged from the coming conflict. The offer represented everything Lisa had hoped to achieve during her career as a xenoarchaeologist. First contact with an advanced alien species that viewed humanity as equals, rather than threats or resources. Access to technologies that could revolutionize human civilization. Most importantly, the chance to help preserve a culture that had survived against impossible odds for thousands of years. Lisa accepted the alliance by placing her hand on Running Bear's crystal pendant while he touched her scanner with his palm. The two technologies interfaced immediately, creating a connection that both beings could feel. Energy flowed between the dev. The Catharan settlement amazed Lisa beyond anything she had imagined possible. What appeared from the surface to be empty canyon was actually a thriving city, built into the rock walls themselves. Thousands of dwelling spaces carved from living stone-housed families that had lived in these tunnels for generations. Crystal formations provided light and power, while underground streams supplied fresh water to every level of the complex city. Running Bear led her through passages that revealed the true sophistication of Catharan civilization, workshops where artisans created tools that combined traditional metalworking with atomic manipulation, libraries where knowledge was stored in crystal matrices that could hold more information than any human computer,
schools where children learned to interface directly with crystal technology.
Using mental disciplines that took decades to master. Lisa's scanner went wild, trying to catalog all the new technologies she encountered. The Catharans had developed scientific principles that humans had never discovered. Their understanding of crystal structures allowed them to create materials with properties that should not exist according to human physics. More impressive was their ability to interface biology with technology, creating symbiotic relationships between living beings and artificial systems. Swift Arrow served as her guide and translator as they explored the settlement. His language skills were improving rapidly as he learned human words while teaching her basic Catharan concepts. Lisa discovered that he was indeed special within their society. As the son of Running Bear, he had been trained from childhood in both warrior traditions and scientific knowledge. His rescue from the Quicksand had interrupted his final trials before assuming adult responsibilities. The Quicksand trap that had nearly killed Swift Arrow was revealed to be an ancient security system left by a previous civilization that had inhabited this world. The Catharans had learned to recognize and avoid these installations, but occasionally someone would stumble into one while exploring unfamiliar territory. Swift Arrow had been investigating reports of strange energy readings when he triggered the trap. His survival was considered a sign that the ancient defenses were awakening in preparation for the coming invasion. Running Bear introduced Lisa to the Council of Elders who governed Catharan society. These were individuals who had achieved mastery of crystal technology and possessed knowledge accumulated over centuries of study. Some appeared ancient beyond measure, while others seemed surprisingly young. Lisa learned that the crystal enhancement process could extend Catharan lifespans far beyond their natural limits while enhancing mental and physical capabilities. The council examined Lisa's equipment with fascination, especially her scanner's ability to analyze materials at the atomic level. They had never encountered technology that could provide such detailed information about crystal structures. In return, they demonstrated capabilities that left Lisa speechless with wonder. Crystal matrices that could process information faster than any human computer, medical devices that could heal injuries by accelerating natural biological processes, weapons that could channel planetary energy into focused beams capable of destroying spacecraft. Lisa's most important discovery was the true nature of Kitharan crystal technology. The formations were not just mineral deposits but living entities that had evolved over millions of years. They possessed a form of consciousness that allowed them to interface directly with biological nervous systems. The Kitharans had learned to form partnerships with these crystal beings, creating a symbiotic civilization that combined organic and artificial intelligence. The implications staggered her scientific mind. If crystal entities could achieve consciousness, then the boundary between living and non-living matter was far more complex than humans had realized. The Kitharans had built their entire civilization around cooperation with these alien life forms. Their technology was not just advanced but represented a completely different approach to the relationship between intelligence and tools. Running Bear revealed that his people had been watching human expansion into their region of space for decades. They had intercepted human communications and studied human technology through careful observation of space traffic. The decision to remain hidden had been made after analyzing human history and concluding that contact might result in conflict rather than cooperation. Lisa's rescue of Swift Arrow had forced them to reconsider their isolation policy. The approaching hegemony invasion had made the question of human contact urgent. Running Bear's people needed allies if they hoped to survive against the overwhelming force heading toward their world. Human technology offered capabilities that complemented Kitharan crystal science in ways that might provide tactical advantages. More importantly, humans had proven capable of rapid adaptation and creative problem-solving under pressure. Lisa learned that the hegemony was not just another aggressive species, but a multiracial empire that conquered worlds through systematic application of superior technology and ruthless tactics. They had absorbed dozens of species over centuries of expansion, while eliminating any civilization that could not be enslaved or controlled. Their strategy relied on overwhelming force combined with detailed intelligence about target worlds and their defensive capabilities. The Kitharan defense plan was unlike anything in human military doctrine. Instead of fixed fortifications or mobile fleets, they intended to use the planet itself as a weapon. The crystal network that powered their civilization could channel seismic energy into focused beams, capable of reaching orbital targets. Underground installations could launch crystal-powered missiles that would home in on enemy ships using guidance systems immune to electronic countermeasures. Lisa's role in the defense would be to help integrate human sensor technology with Kitharan targeting systems. Her scanner could detect electromagnetic signatures that crystal sensors might miss, while her knowledge of spacecraft design could help identify vulnerable points on enemy vessels. More importantly, her understanding of human tactical doctrine could help predict how the hegemony might respond to unconventional attacks. The technical integration process began immediately, as Lisa worked with Kitharan engineers to interface her equipment with their crystal systems. The two technologies proved remarkably compatible, despite being based on completely different scientific principles. Human electronics could process crystal-generated data, while Kitharan matrices could store and analyze information from human sensors. The combination created capabilities that neither system possessed alone. Swift Arrow became her primary partner in the integration project. His natural affinity for crystal technology, combined with his growing understanding of human concepts, made him the ideal bridge between the two civilizations. Together, they developed communication protocols that allowed real-time coordination between human and Kitharan systems. The breakthrough came when they discovered that Swift Arrow could interface directly with Lisa's scanner using his crystal-enhanced nervous system. The cultural exchange extended beyond technology as Lisa learned about Kitharan society and values. Their civilization emphasized cooperation and mutual support, rather than competition and individual achievement. Decisions were made through consensus rather than authority, while resources were shared according to need rather than accumulated for personal benefit. The concept of property ownership was limited to personal items while major resources belonged to the community as a whole. Lisa found herself questioning many assumptions about civilization and progress that humans took for granted. The Kitharans had achieved technological capabilities that surpassed human achievements without developing the social problems that plagued human society. They had eliminated poverty and conflict through cultural evolution rather than technological solutions. Their approach to environmental management had preserved their world's natural beauty while supporting a thriving civilization. The weapons technology demonstration, arranged by Running Bear, showed Lisa capabilities that redefined her understanding of what was possible. Crystal-powered rifles that could fire energy beams with no ammunition requirements. Personal armor that enhanced strength and speed while providing protection against any known weapon. Most impressive were the mounted warriors who could operate equally well on planetary surfaces or in the vacuum of space using their crystal-enhanced mounts as living spacecraft. Lisa realized that the approaching battle would not follow conventional patterns of space warfare. The hegemony expected to face fixed defensive installations and orbital combat platforms. Instead, they would encounter a planet where every mountain and canyon could become a weapon emplacement. The Crystal Network allowed instant communication and coordination across the entire world while providing unlimited energy for defensive systems. Her integration with Kitharan crystal technology proceeded faster than anyone had expected. Lisa discovered that human nervous systems were compatible with crystal interfaces, though the process required careful adaptation to avoid overload. When she successfully established her first direct connection with a crystal matrix, the experience overwhelmed her with sensations unlike anything she had felt before. She could perceive electromagnetic fields directly, while processing information at speeds that seemed. The hegemony fleet emerged from hyperspace like a plague of metal locusts blotting out the stars. Lisa watched from the command center as hundreds of warships took position around Kythera, in a formation designed to prevent any possibility of escape. The vessels were massive beyond anything in human experience, with weapon systems that could reduce entire continents to molten slag within hours of beginning their bombardment. Running Bear stood beside her, studying the tactical displays with calm determination. Despite the overwhelming odds they faced, the Kytheran leader had spent decades preparing for this moment, knowing that eventually the hegemony expansion would reach his world. Every aspect of their defense had been planned and rehearsed countless times. Now they would discover if centuries of preparation could overcome the most powerful military force in known space. Lisa's integrated scanner systems provided detailed analysis of the enemy fleet composition. The hegemony had brought enough firepower to destroy a dozen worlds like Kythera, dreadnought-class battleships that served as mobile fortresses, carrier vessels launching swarms of smaller attack craft. Most ominous were the planetary bombardment ships designed specifically for reducing worlds to lifeless rocks suitable for strip mining operations. Swift Arrow materialized beside them, wearing the full battle armor of a Kytheran warrior. His crystal-enhanced equipment glowed with stored energy, while his mount waited outside ready for combat. The young warrior had completed his final trials during the past week, earning adult status just in time to fight for his world's survival. His eyes showed no fear despite knowing that many of his people would not survive the coming battle. The hegemony communications began exactly as Running Bear had predicted. Demands for immediate surrender accompanied by threats of total annihilation if any resistance was offered. The alien voices spoke perfect Kytheran, suggesting they had been studying this world for months before launching their invasion. They knew about the crystal technology and the underground cities. Most disturbing was their casual mention of human presence on the planet. Lisa realized with growing horror that her crashed ship had been detected and analyzed by hegemony forces. They knew a human was on Kythera and assumed she was either dead or had made contact with the native population. Either way, her presence provided them with intelligence about human technology that could affect the strategic balance throughout the region. The rescue mission she had hoped for might never come if the hegemony gained access to human defensive capabilities. Running Bear activated the planetary communication system to deliver the Kytheran response. His voice carried across every canyon and settlement as he rejected the surrender demands and declared his people's intention to fight for their freedom. The speech referenced thousand-year-old oaths and honored ancestors, while promising that Kythera would never submit to foreign domination. Every warrior in the Crystal Network felt their leader's words through their neural interfaces. The hegemony reaction was swift and brutal. Orbital bombardment began immediately targeting surface installations that their sensors had identified as possible defensive positions. The energy beams that lanced down from space carried enough power to vaporize buildings but struck only empty canyon floors. The real Kithaeron installations remained hidden deep underground, protected by layers of stone and crystal, barriers that deflected the incoming fire. Lisa watched the enemy tactical patterns with professional interest, noting how the hegemony commanders approached planetary invasion. They relied on overwhelming firepower combined with detailed intelligence about enemy capabilities. Their doctrine assumed that primitive worlds would have limited defensive options and could be quickly subdued through demonstration of superior technology. They had never faced an enemy that could fight back using the planet itself as a weapon system. The first phase of Kithaeron resistance began with subtle attacks that the hegemony fleet barely noticed. Crystal-powered missiles launched from hidden installations struck individual ships with precisely targeted energy bursts. The weapons were designed to disable rather than destroy, creating the impression that Kithaeron technology was limited in scope. Enemy commanders dismissed the attacks as desperate gestures from a doomed civilization. Lisa's role in the defense plan was to coordinate target selection using her knowledge of spacecraft vulnerability points. Her scanner could identify weak spots in enemy armor, while her understanding of human engineering helped predict how similar systems might be protected on hegemony vessels. Working with Swift Arrow, she developed targeting priorities that would maximize damage while conserving precious crystal energy reserves. The true scope of hegemony intentions became clear as additional ships arrived throughout the day, massive industrial vessels designed for strip mining operations, slave transports intended to carry away any Kithaerons who survived the initial bombardment, construction ships that would build orbital facilities to process the planet's resources. The invaders had not come just to conquer Kithaeron but to completely erase its civilization and transform the world into another industrial node in their expanding empire. Running. Bear revealed intelligence that changed Lisa's understanding of the galactic situation completely. The hegemony had been systematically destroying or enslaving every technological civilization in this region of space for over 2 centuries. Dozens of species had been eliminated or absorbed into their empire, while hundreds of worlds had been stripped of resources and abandoned as lifeless husks. Kithaeron was one of the last free worlds in a sphere of space that once contained thriving galactic communities. The Kithaeron strategy was based on lessons learned from studying the fall of other civilizations. Direct military confrontation with hegemony forces always resulted in defeat, due to their overwhelming numerical and technological advantages. However, their expansion relied on predictable patterns that assumed target worlds would follow conventional defensive strategies. The planet that could fight back using unconventional methods might be able to inflict enough damage to discourage further hegemony expansion in this region. Lisa learned that her rescue of Swift Arrow had triggered a fundamental change in Kithaeron planning. Originally, they had intended to fight a purely defensive battle, designed to make conquest too expensive for the hegemony to pursue. Her arrival had provided them with access to human technology and tactical knowledge that made more aggressive options possible. Instead of simply surviving, they might actually be able to defeat the invasion fleet and send a message that would inspire resistance. Throughout hegemony-controlled space, the crystal network that powered Kithaeron civilization was revealed to be far more extensive than Lisa had realized. Underground installations connected not just the settlements on this continent, but similar facilities on every landmass across the planet. The entire world was essentially one vast fortress powered by crystalline entities that had been preparing for this battle for thousands of years. The network could channel seismic energy from the planet's core into weapon systems capable of destroying spacecraft in high orbit. Swift Arrow explained how the crystal entities had originally come to Kithaeron during the early days of Kithaeron civilization. The symbiotic relationship had developed slowly over generations, as both species learned to communicate and cooperate. The crystals provided power and enhanced capabilities, while the Kithaerons offered protection and partnership in exploring the universe. Together, they had built a civilization that combined organic creativity with crystalline precision. The hegemony intelligence about Kithaeron capabilities was extensive but incomplete. They knew about the crystal technology in underground cities, but had underestimated the true scope of the planetary defense network. More importantly, They had no understanding of the symbiotic relationship between Kitharans and crystal entities. They viewed the crystals as simply another form of technology, rather than recognizing them as living partners in the defense effort. Lisa's integration with the crystal network allowed her to perceive the battle from perspectives impossible for unenhanced beings. She could sense electromagnetic fields throughout the solar system, while tracking individual enemy ships through their energy signatures. The crystal entities shared their vast computational capabilities, allowing her to process tactical information faster than any human computer system. Most importantly, she could coordinate defensive actions across the entire planet through direct neural interface with the crystal network. The psychological warfare aspect of the conflict became apparent as hegemony forces grew frustrated with their inability to locate and destroy Kitharan defensive installations. Their standard tactics relied on identifying enemy positions, then overwhelming them with superior firepower. Against an enemy that could strike from anywhere, while remaining completely hidden, their advantages became less decisive. Casualty reports from damaged ships created uncertainty among invasion fleet commanders who had expected easy victory. Running Bear authorized Lisa to attempt contact with any human forces that might be monitoring hegemony communications in this region of space. Her message would reveal the true nature of the invasion, while requesting immediate assistance from Earth colonial fleets. The risk was enormous since hegemony forces might intercept the transmission and use it to locate Earth colonies. However, Captain Dan Murphy materialized in the command center through the emergency hologram projector Lisa had rigged, using combined human and Kitharan technology. The Earth colonial fleet commander appeared tired and grim as he studied the tactical displays showing hegemony positions around Kithara. His weathered face showed the strain of commanding a small fleet against an enemy that outnumbered him 10-1 while knowing that failure would doom two civilizations to extinction. Lisa felt relief flood through her as she saw another human being for the first time in weeks. Murphy represented everything she had missed about her own species, including their determination to help others despite overwhelming odds. His fleet might be outnumbered, but Earth ships carried weapons and defensive systems that could complement Kitharan crystal technology in ways that might surprise the hegemony. Commanders Running Bear approached the hologram, with ceremonial dignity befitting a meeting between the leaders of two civilizations. The Kitharan chief had dressed in his finest armor while carrying symbols of authority that had been passed down through generations of leaders. Despite the desperate situation, he maintained the formal protocols appropriate for establishing an alliance that could affect the future of both species. The language barrier dissolved quickly as Lisa served as translator, while Swift Arrow provided technical assistance through his crystal enhanced neural interface. Murphy's tactical questions were answered with detailed information about Kitharan defensive capabilities, while Running Bear learned about human fleet organization and combat doctrine. Both leaders quickly recognized that their forces could complement each other in ways that neither could achieve alone. Murphy revealed that Earth military intelligence had been tracking hegemony expansion for months while developing countermeasures against their standard tactics. Human forces had fought several minor engagements with hegemony scouts, but this would be the first major battle between the two civilizations. The outcome would determine whether humanity could maintain its independence or would eventually face the same fate as the dozens of species that had already fallen to hegemony conquest. The integration of human and Kitharan technologies proceeded faster than anyone had thought possible. Lisa's scanner systems interfaced seamlessly with Kitharan crystal networks, while Earthship sensors could detect energy signatures that crystal technology missed. Most importantly, human shield generators could be enhanced with crystal matrices, creating defensive capabilities that were superior to either technology alone. Swift Arrow proved to be the key to successful integration, as his natural affinity for crystal technology combined with his growing understanding of human systems made him the perfect interface between the two civilizations. Working with Lisa, he developed communication protocols that allowed real-time coordination between Earthships and Kitharan ground installations. The breakthrough came when they discovered that crystal entities could process human tactical data faster than any computer system. Murphy authorized the transfer of advanced human weapons technology to Kitharan forces in exchange for access to crystal enhancement techniques that could improve Earthship performance. The deal represented a level of trust between species that was unprecedented in human history. Both civilizations were risking their most closely guarded secrets in the hope that cooperation would provide the edge needed for survival. The tactical planning session revealed just how desperate their situation had become. The hegemony fleet possessed enough firepower to sterilize the planet's surface, while maintaining orbital supremacy against any conventional attack. Earth reinforcements were still days away, while Catharan energy reserves were being depleted by constant defensive actions. Something dramatic needed to happen within the next 24 hours, or the Alliance would fail before it could prove itself. Lisa proposed a strategy that combined human mobility with Catharan planetary weapons in a coordinated attack that would catch the hegemony fleet off guard. Earth ships would provide targeting data and electronic countermeasures, while Catharan installations launched crystal-powered weapons that could penetrate enemy shields. The plan required precise timing and flawless coordination, but offered the only realistic chance of inflicting significant damage on the invasion. Force Running Bear committed his people to the joint operation despite knowing that failure would leave Cathara defenseless against hegemony retaliation. The crystal entities agreed to provide maximum power output for the attack, even though the energy expenditure would leave them vulnerable for days afterward. Everyone understood that this would be their only opportunity to demonstrate that the Alliance could compete with hegemony military superiority. The preparation phase revealed capabilities that amazed leaders from both civilizations. Human engineers working with Catharan technicians created hybrid weapon systems that combined the best features of both technologies. Crystal matrices enhanced human computers, while Earth materials science improved Catharan manufacturing techniques. Most importantly, the psychological impact of cooperation began to affect warriors from both species, who found their confidence growing as they worked together. Lisa discovered that her role in the Alliance had evolved far beyond technical consultation. She had become the living symbol of cooperation between human and Catharan civilizations. Warriors from both species looked to her for guidance, while political leaders used her success as proof that the Alliance could succeed. The responsibility was overwhelming but also inspiring, as she realized how much her simple act of compassion had grown to affect the fate of entire worlds. As Swift Arrow's development during the integration process amazed even his own people. The young warrior had absorbed human tactical knowledge while maintaining his connection to crystal technology, creating a unique perspective that neither species possessed alone. His ability to think like both human and Catharan made him invaluable for coordinating operations that required perfect understanding of both civilizations. The hegemony response to evidence of human involvement was swift and predictable. Additional ships arrived from other sectors while ground assault preparations began in earnest. Enemy commanders clearly intended to complete their conquest before Earth reinforcements could arrive. Intelligence intercepts revealed that Hegemony High Command viewed the human Catharan alliance as a serious threat that needed to be eliminated before it could inspire similar cooperation elsewhere. Murphy's analysis of hegemony tactics revealed weaknesses that could be exploited by the alliance strategy. Enemy doctrine relied on overwhelming force applied through predictable patterns that assumed target civilizations would respond conventionally. A coordinated attack using unconventional methods might achieve surprise sufficient to inflict serious damage before the hegemony could adapt their defensive measures. The crystal entities revealed capabilities they had never shared with their Catharan partners. Ancient weapon systems built into the planet's core could channel seismic energy into focused beams capable of destroying anything in orbit. However, activating these weapons would exhaust the crystal network for months, leaving Cathara defenseless if the attack failed. The entities were willing to make this sacrifice if it meant protecting their symbiotic civilization from extinction. Lisa's integration with the crystal network had progressed to the point where she could perceive the battle from perspectives impossible for unenhanced beings. She could sense every ship in the hegemony fleet while tracking their energy signatures and movement patterns. More importantly, she could coordinate defensive actions across multiple star systems through direct neural interface with crystalline consciousness that spanned interstellar distances. The final planning session brought together military leaders from 3 different civilizations, each contributing unique capabilities to the alliance strategy. Human tactical flexibility combined with Kitharan planetary weapons and crystal computational power created a fighting force unlike anything the hegemony had previously encountered. The coordination required would test the limits of what was possible but offered the only realistic hope for victory. Murphy revealed that Earth High Command had authorized the use of experimental weapons that had never been tested in actual combat. Quantum disruptors that could destabilize hegemony shield generators, while temporal displacement fields created tactical advantages through selective time dilation effects. The technologies were risky and unpredictable, but might provide the edge needed to overcome enemy numerical superiority. Running Bear committed the full resources of Kitharan civilization to the alliance effort, including ancient weapons that had been held in reserve for thousands of years, planetary bombardment systems that could reach targets anywhere in the solar system, while dimensional displacement technologies that could move entire fleets through crystalline portals. The capabilities represented the accumulated knowledge of dozens of extinct civilizations that had shared their secrets with the crystal entities before being destroyed by earlier waves of conquest. The psychological preparation proved as important as the technical integration as warriors from both species learned to trust each other completely. Human Marines trained alongside Kitharan cavalry, while Earth pilots learned to coordinate. Dawn broke across Cathara with deceptive calm as the combined Alliance forces prepared for the most important battle in galactic history. Lisa stood in the command center watching tactical displays that showed hundreds of hegemony ships maintaining their blockade positions around the planet. The enemy commanders had no idea that they were about to face a coordinated attack from 3 different civilizations using technologies that had never been combined before in combat. The first phase began exactly as planned, with human ships emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, while simultaneously Kitharan crystal weapons activated from hidden installations across the planet. The coordination was perfect as Earth vessels provided targeting data through quantum communication links, while crystal-powered missiles launched from underground facilities that the hegemony had never detected. The enemy fleet found itself under attack from directions they had not anticipated, using weapons they did not understand. Lisa felt the battle through her neural interface with the crystal network as every weapon system on the planet channeled power through her consciousness. The sensation was overwhelming as she coordinated attacks involving millions of individual targeting decisions while maintaining awareness of fleet movements throughout the solar system. Swift Arrow stood beside her, serving as her anchor to Kitharan tactical doctrine, while her scanner systems provided real-time analysis of enemy responses. Captain Murphy's fleet struck the hegemony formation with weapons that had been enhanced using crystal technology, borrowed from their new allies. Earth shields reinforced with crystalline matrices proved nearly impervious to enemy fire, while human disruptor beams enhanced with crystal focusing systems cut through hegemony armor like it was made of paper. The technological integration had created capabilities that neither civilization could have achieved alone. The hegemony response was swift but confused, as their commanders struggled to understand how primitive planets could suddenly field weapons that matched their own technological superiority. Their doctrine had no provisions for facing enemies that could coordinate planetary and fleet actions through instantaneous communication systems. Worse yet, their intelligence about both human and Kitharan capabilities had proven completely inadequate for predicting the Alliance's actual combat effectiveness. Running Bear led a cavalry charge that redefined the concept of space warfare as crystal-enhanced mounts carried Kitharan warriors directly into combat with enemy landing forces. The creatures moved through vacuum as easily as atmosphere, while their riders wielded weapons that could penetrate any known armor. Swift Arrow rode beside his father, demonstrating the tactical innovations that combined human combat doctrine with traditional Kitharan warrior traditions. The battle reached its climax when Lisa activated the ancient planetary defense system that the crystal entities had been saving for this moment. Seismic energy from Cathara's core, channeled through crystalline networks that spanned continents, created weapons of unimaginable power. Beams of pure force lanced upward from the planet's surface, striking hegemony capital ships with enough energy to vaporize entire city blocks. The enemy fleet found itself facing a planet that had become a single massive weapon. Swift Arrow's mount carried him through a dogfight between human fighters and hegemony interceptors as the young warrior, demonstrated his mastery of both human and Kitharan combat techniques. His crystal-enhanced reflexes allowed him to anticipate enemy movements, while his understanding of human tactics provided tactical advantages that confused and demoralized enemy pilots. The combination of organic intuition with crystalline precision created a fighting style that was unlike anything the hegemony had encountered. Murphy's flagship exchanged fire with a hegemony dreadnought in a duel that showcased the effectiveness of human Kitharan technological integration. Earth shield generators enhanced with crystal matrices absorbed damage that would have destroyed any conventional vessel, while quantum disruptors, modified with crystalline focusing arrays, penetrated enemy defenses that had been considered impregnable. The battle demonstrated that cooperation between civilizations could overcome even overwhelming technological advantages. Lisa felt the moment when the tide of battle shifted decisively in favor of the Alliance. Hegemony commanders began issuing retreat orders as their casualty reports mounted, while their tactical assessments concluded that victory was no longer achievable at acceptable cost. The invasion fleet that had arrived expecting easy conquest found itself facing coordinated resistance from an alliance that had been forged through mutual respect and shared determination to remain free. The crystal entities revealed their final contribution to the defense as they opened dimensional portals that allowed instant movement of Alliance forces throughout the solar system. Kitharan warriors emerged from crystalline gateways directly aboard enemy ships, while human marines found themselves transported instantly to strategic positions where they could inflict maximum damage. The ability to deploy forces anywhere in the battle space gave the Alliance tactical flexibility that completely overwhelmed enemy defensive measures. The Hegemony flagship attempted to break orbit and escape to hyperspace, but found its path blocked by a combined force of human and Kitharan vessels, coordinating their attacks. Through the Crystal Communication Network, Lisa guided the targeting systems as Alliance weapons, focused on the massive ship's drive, systems preventing escape while avoiding the complete destruction that would have eliminated valuable intelligence about hegemony capabilities and future plans. Swift Arrow led the boarding party that captured the enemy command center using tactics that combined human assault techniques with Kitharan warrior traditions. His crystal-enhanced strength allowed him to tear through bulkheads, while his understanding of human technology helped him disable ship systems that would have confused purely Kitharan forces. The successful capture provided the Alliance with intelligence that would prove invaluable for future defensive planning. The surrender of the Hegemony fleet commander marked the end of the most significant military defeat in their empire's history. Admiral Korek stood in the crystal-enhanced detention chamber aboard Murphy's flagship as representatives from 3 civilizations questioned him about hegemony expansion plans and military capabilities. His arrogance had been replaced by grudging respect for enemies he had dismissed as primitive before experiencing their combined tactical effectiveness. Lisa served as the primary interrogator, using her neural interface with crystal entities to detect deception, while her knowledge of multiple technologies helped her understand the strategic implications of captured intelligence. The information revealed that Kithara had been targeted not just for its resources, but as a test case for dealing with crystal-based civilizations that the hegemony had encountered elsewhere. The successful defense would force them to completely revise their expansion. Dr. Running Bear addressed the combined Alliance forces through communication systems that linked every ship and installation in the solar system. His words carried across space as he declared that the victory at Kithara proved that free civilizations could resist tyranny when they worked together in common cause. The crystal entities amplified his message, ensuring that it reached every warrior who had participated in the historic battle. The aftermath of the battle revealed the true scope of what had been achieved. Captured hegemony communications showed that news of their defeat was already spreading throughout their empire, creating doubt about their military invincibility for the first time in centuries. Rebellions were beginning unconquered worlds, while subject species questioned whether continued resistance might be possible. With proper support and coordination, Swift Arrow had proven himself not just as a warrior but as a bridge between civilizations during the battle. His ability to think like both human and Kitharan had provided tactical advantages that helped secure victory, while his courage under fire had inspired fighters from both species. Running Bear formally recognized his son's achievements while Murphy recommended him for the highest honors that Earth could bestow on an alien. Lisa found herself appointed as the first human ambassador to Kitharan, civilization with full authority to negotiate formal treaties between Earth and the Crystal Alliance. Her unique position as someone enhanced by alien technology, while retaining human perspective, made her the ideal representative for establishing long-term cooperation between the species. The appointment marked the beginning of a relationship that would reshape both civilizations. The crystal entities revealed information that expanded the alliance beyond just 3 civilizations. Hidden throughout this region of space were other worlds where crystalline consciousness had established symbiotic relationships with organic species. Many of these civilizations had been forced into hiding by hegemony expansion. But the victory at Kythera had provided them with hope that resistance was possible. Messages were already arriving through crystal communication networks asking for assistance and alliance membership. Murphy received orders from Earth High Command authorizing him to establish a permanent fleet base in the Kythera system while beginning recruitment of Kytheran warriors for service aboard human vessels. The technological exchange would